President Trump is strongly denouncing the impeachment trial and in the process unloading on one of his favorite targets, the media.
The fake news media is unbelievable. People got Pulitzer Prizes for their coverage of me, and it turned out they were totally wrong. Other people, Sean Hannity, Rushbo, a lot of great people, a lot of great writers, they got it right. They didn't get Pulitzer Prizes, but they got it right.
Are you concerned about getting a fair trial?
These people are crazy. They have gone totally nuts.
Joining us now to talk about this very intense week is Stephanie Grisham, the White House press secretary. Welcome.
Thank you.
Why is the president again aggressively going after the media during this impeachment saga when it's the House Democrats that brought these articles of impeachment and are prosecuting the trial in the Senate?
I mean, I think the video that you showed at the top actually is a very good example. We were in Switzerland at Davos at the World Economic Forum. The president was touting the country's economy. He was touting the Phase 1 China deal. We were talking about the good things we're doing for this country. We did a press conference, and I think he got 2 questions about what we were there for, and the rest was all impeachment. They just won't, the obsession with it won't let up, and it's to the detriment of the country because they're not hearing about all the great things that are happening for the country.
In fairness, he doesn't shy away from talking about it. Your boss has been tweeting this morning, number one, the impeachment hoax is a massive election interference, the likes of which has never been seen before. But even though this was a party line vote, it is, thanks in part to Alexander Hamilton, in the Constitution. So why does he say massive election interference?
Well, because they're trying to stop the next election. They're trying to stop him from being the next president for the next 4 years. This is clearly, I mean, they've said it with their own words. He must be impeached. They've been saying it since the day he was inaugurated. They tried it with Russia, and that didn't work. And now they're doing this obsessive little dance, and that's what he's trying to say.
Also this week, the president called one of the House managers, Jerry Nadler, a sleazebag. And this tweet from just an hour or two ago, Shifty Adam Schiff is a corrupt politician and is probably a very sick man. He has not paid the price yet for what he has done to our country. That sounds like a vague threat.
I disagree. I think that people, and this has been a theme throughout actually this process, people put meanings behind what he says. The president speaks in a very unique way. He's very, he's a counterpuncher. He's saying what's on his mind.
What does he mean Schiff has not paid the price?
I haven't talked to him about it yet today, but I think he means he will not pay, he hasn't yet paid the price with the voters. He hasn't paid the price yet with the people of this country who see that he's been lying and very obsessed. And quite frankly, just, I mean, it seems like he's having a little bit of a mental issue when you sit on the floor for hours and hours and hours. He is obsessed with this president and trying to take him down.
Well, Congressman Schiff said on Meet the Press this morning that he believes it was intended to be a threat, but you're saying political and not some kind of law enforcement
Of
threat.
course, and the fact that he said that was grandstanding. That's ridiculous.
Okay, you talk about obsession, but just as when Bill Clinton was brought to trial in a Republican-led effort 2 decades ago, the impeachment of a president, fairly or unfairly, is a very, very large story. Do you have a beef with how the press is covering this trial?
I have a beef with the way that it's very biased and one-sided. I've even noticed that during the breaks after the Senate trial, it seems that Schumer and the Democrats are getting all of this airtime and not the Republican side. I think that you see a lot of the networks saying, well, this is what he obviously meant. This is what it's clear he's very guilty. That's not true. In a court of trial, obviously you're innocent until proven guilty. These people, the media, have said he was guilty of everything from Russia collusion to now this from the very start. And yeah, I have a problem with that.
Well, Chuck Schumer's been holding a morning news conference every day as well as going on shows, and he's the Senate Minority Leader.
He's made it to the cameras quicker than anything I've seen. I'm wondering if he's knocking folks down after the breaks to get out there to the cameras. It's amazing. And he and Joe Scarborough seem to have something going on every single morning, so that's great.
All right, we don't have any reports of anybody being knocked over. Now, let's talk about these indicted operatives, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman. Now, they were at a private dinner. We can put a picture up of this with the president at the Trump Hotel here less than 2 years ago. And Parnas has now released the videotape that was first reported by ABC. Let's take a look.
I think where we need to start is we got to get rid of the ambassador. She's still left over from the Clinton administration.
Where the ambassador were Ukraine?
Yeah.
Get rid of her.
Correct.
Okay, get her out tomorrow. I don't care. Get her out tomorrow. Take her out. Okay?
Excellent.
Do it.
Now, they're talking there about Marie Yovanovitch, then the ambassador to Ukraine. And let's be clear, the president can fire any ambassador he wants for any reason at any time. And in fact, Yovanovitch was not recalled until a year after that dinner, which was surreptitiously videotaped. But Anchors like Chris Cuomo and Aaron Burnett and other journalists are saying this shows the president lied when he said he did not know Lev Parnas.
Well, again, I mean, consider where those two are from, what cable channel they're on. But the president sits at many, many dinners, at many, many round tables with people that he does not know. Now, if somebody comes to him and says, hey, you know, somebody's doing something, they don't support you, et cetera, and you have to remember, President Zelensky himself said that there was a problem with this ambassador and that she was not supporting the president's policies. So if the president's hearing that, he's going to then turn to somebody who's next to him and say, let's get her out of there. I think that's perfectly in line with anything he has the right to do, and it's something that he does constantly.
But here's the president asked about this at Davos. He says, I don't know him, Lev Parnas. Other than that, he's sort of like a groupie. He shows up at fundraisers. Okay, I don't know anything about him. He's also called him a con man. He is under indictment, of course, and that has to be factored in. But they're having a conversation. Lev Parnas is talking about wanting to go into the energy business in Ukraine. He also gave a lot of money to a PAC to be able to be at that dinner. So isn't it more accurate to say the president maybe doesn't know him well, but certainly knows who he is?
No, I disagree with that. Again, I believe that he was there with Rudy Giuliani, somebody that the president trusts, and the president has said that many times. So if somebody that the president trusts has somebody else with them and he's giving him information that he'd already heard, and again, from the president of another country, I think it's very reasonable that the president would listen to that, no matter if he knows him or not, and then give a directive that it's probably time for her to go.
Now, even some of the people who are defending the president are saying that none of this rises to the level of impeachment. Some of them say, well, what happened with Ukraine, the phone call, the pressure campaign, the testimony from the career officials in the House was not good, perhaps troubling, but doesn't warrant removal from office. And yet the president, his lawyers, you, seem to believe that there's nothing of substance here.
Well, there's not. And the witnesses that you talk about, even career witnesses, they all said that everything was their opinion, what they thought was right, what they thought wasn't right. And they all ended up saying they didn't see that he did anything wrong. They had no proof. They never heard directly from him. And again, the president has released both of those transcripts on his own. All of this is based on something he released on his own. So it's true. And I would say that from yesterday, our legal team, I think in 2 hours, they were able to undo the 24 hours of what the Dems did on the floor of the Senate. And I think that Monday and Tuesday, it's just going to get better. And it's just going to show the American people truly that there's nothing there.
Right. They have more to come this week. They just did a kind of a preview yesterday.
Yeah.
But it's more than just the career officials' opinions. Some of them had a lot of contact with Rudy Giuliani, who was the president's personal lawyer. One overheard a phone call from the president. Some said there was a quid pro quo.
They say they heard it. They say they overheard it. I mean, again, these are people's
opinions. But to dismiss
opinions.
it merely as opinions, I mean, these are the people whose job it was to deal with Ukraine and who were affected by what some are calling a shadow foreign policy.
No, these people who it was their job to deal with Ukraine have said they did not like the policy. They did not like the president's policy, and that's a real problem. Career officials or not, when you work for an administration, you need to carry out the policies of the president. They have said, a couple of them said they were not sure and had real concerns about the policy here. That is not an impeachable offense.
So you see this as a policy disagreement as opposed to...
1,000%, that's what this is.
All right, but now even National Review, conservative magazine, says it's embarrassing for Republicans to argue, and by the way, National Review is not saying the president should be removed from office, quote, to argue that presidents cannot be impeached for any abuse of power unless that abuse took the form of a criminal violation of a statute. Because there has been an argument from your side, though it's got to be a crime, there's no crime committed, therefore it's irrelevant.
Yes, I mean, I agree with that. You just answered that question. He
Well, that's the argument, but National Review's not buying it.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. That's just the case. There was no abuse of power. There was no obstruction of Congress. I still don't understand what that means. I would say, again, Nancy Pelosi is the one who obstructed Congress by holding on to these silly impeachment articles for so long.
Even some liberal commentators like MSNBC's Ari Melber have said they thought the second article, the obstruction article, was much weaker than the other one. We'll have more on this later, but as you know, this has become a bit of a flap in Washington. NPR's Mary Louise Kelly says that Mike Pompeo, after an interview, radio interview in which she pressed him about Ukraine, delivered an expletive-filled tirade, which he says was off the record. She says she never agreed to that. Is that a proper response to a journalist who is asking legitimate questions in an interview?
Well, I don't know exactly what happened. I don't know if it was expletive filled. I would say, though, that there's a real problem with the media. When you agree to ground rules for an interview and then you go off of those ground rules and ask questions that, you know, the person wasn't anticipating, that's not okay. And when you...
Just to stop you, what was the ground rules that you're understanding that were agreed to, that only a certain topic?
It was just one topic was to be discussed, and then she went, you know, off topic and talked about Ukraine. Now, I agree that reporters should be able to ask questions of any topic, and certainly Ukraine is a topic right now that would be discussed, but if ground rules were set, then she shouldn't have broken those ground rules. And if he wanted to talk to her about his frustrations off the record, she should not be talking about what was said. I don't know if it was expletive filled, but we're finding this to be a real problem. People are going off the record constantly in the media.
Just briefly, Kelly says that Pompeo said to her, do you think Americans care about blanking Ukraine? Do you?
No. I think that if you look at the viewership going down, clearly they don't. I think that people forget that out in this country, people have jobs that they're going to do. They go home, they're cooking dinner for their families, they're picking up kids from daycare. I think that people are tired of it, and I certainly think they're not paying attention. I'm having a hard time paying attention during the day, and it's my job to pay attention to it.